Rather, they fired her because of her daddy, because her father is James. So I got fired because you don't like my dad. All right, Maureen. We have a lot of criticisms with the FBI and the DOJ. Look at this. These are all of her stickers. Look at this. They put them in a bullet point list. I'm sure she read this. Another APA claim, freedom of speech claim, and a due process claim. Okay, so property interest. She thinks she's got a property interest in this job. What a joke. Fired prosecutor Maureen Comey. You recognize that last name, Comey, because her daddy, James, is the FBI director who is, in my opinion, a criminal and hopefully gets indicted soon for his collusion on Crossfire Hurricane and rigging elections, or trying to rig elections by colluding with Brennan, Comey, Clapper, Obama, all of them in that one room to create the Russia collusion hoax. Well, of course we know Maureen Comey because we've covered a lot of her cases here, including some of the Diddy trial. She definitely handled the Jeffrey Epstein case, and she also handled the Ghislaine Maxwell case. All of those were kind of honeypot entrapment schemes, and she did a terrible job on all of them, okay? And so now she got fired from the Southern District of New York, and she is suing everybody in what might be one of the most pathetic lawsuits we've seen from a prosecutor here, but they're all big babies, so it's hard to really parse through them. But here is what they write. Maureen Comey, James's daughter, she also kind of blames her dad on this. Like, my dad hates Trump, not me, so I'm getting victimized for my political opinions, which aren't even mine. She's writing about herself, so her lawyers are writing this about her. She's exemplary. She's dedicated. She's highly decorated, blah, blah, blah. Now, she's handled all of these cases. You remember this. Her outstanding record was actually terrible. Sean Diddy Combs, she got a split verdict on that, like didn't even get the big charges. And we know that case was a stretch. I mean, not to say that what he did was immoral and disgusting and all those things, but they charged it as a RICO so that they could bring in these other cases and then have this ongoing conspiracy so that the last offense could be kind of bundled in with the earliest offense. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. And of course, she basically lost that. Also, she handled Robert Haddon, Jeffrey Epstein, which the indictment for that was like 90 minutes, and Ghislaine Maxwell as well. Very short indictments. Basically, they didn't bring in any victims. They brought in like one investigator to testify and go through slides, and that was it. In recognition of her work, she was repeatedly promoted. Do you know why? Because she was playing the game, because she was covering all these cases up. There was no actual real investigation into Epstein or Maxwell. We saw that. Epstein, they just needed to sideline him. Maxwell, as soon as they lost Epstein, they had to go get her. And the Diddy case, as disgusting as it was, felt much more like an operation. It felt like they needed to go get some compromat, or they needed to make sure he did not have compromat. Okay, so it was like a sword or a shield. Now, she handled all those. They were terrible. Despite her exemplary performance, even though she did not get a full convictions on Diddy, and the Maxwell case was also like 4 victims. We got nobody else other than Epstein or Ghislaine because they bundled it up and cordoned it off. Now, despite her exemplary performance, which was terrible, they gave her outstanding reviews, and they didn't identify any cause for her removal other than the fact that Trump is the president of the United States, which is enough. So her termination without cause or advance notice, they say, is unlawful, unconstitutional, and so now she's suing. They haven't given us any explanation because there is no legitimate explanation, and they don't need one. Rather, they fired her because of her daddy, because her father is James. So I got fired because you don't like my dad. All right, Maureen. And perceived political affiliations are both. We know that James served as the FBI. He wrote a critical memoir of President Trump, publicly criticized Trump, continues to publicly criticize Trump, posted 8647 on social media, which of course was threatening, as President Trump noticed. So following Mr. Comey's social media post, Trump supporters called for firing Miss Comey, the daughter, and they bring in Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer comes into the game. On May 18th, Laura Loomer goes wild. She says, you know, Mr. Comey's liberal daughter and her Democrat husband must be fired immediately for being a national security risk. 100% right. Saying that they just committed a felony to try to assassinate the president after the 8647, right? She's like, you know, take out Trump. So the daughter has to go. She's calling Attorney General Pamela Blondie, Miss Loomer, saying if Comey is here, every deep state operator is being emboldened. Laura Loomer's right. After Miss Comey's termination, Miss Loomer boasted that the decision came months after my pressure campaign for Blondie to fire Comey. And so they say, well, it's clearly political. Laura Loomer got Maureen Comey fired. And they say the executive branch can't do this. Congress protected her. That's all nonsense. And of course, she went to Harvard Law Review. They're mostly plagiarists and liars there at Harvard, as we can tell. And they're also incompetent because there are Harvard lawyers like everywhere, all around the government. It's like they're ever like Harvard. Oh, I went to Harvard Law, or or like Yale, or like the Bidens like brought in the Oxford people. Our country is not in good shape. They have to be some of the dumbest people on the planet. I don't know what they're teaching them there. So I don't really know what that means, if anything. And we know like there's plagiarists there. I mean, everybody's plagiarizing in Harvard. They just let you in. In fact, I think you might have to be a plagiarist in order to get in there. But she completed her clerkship and she's amazing. And she's got decades of service. She's got over 200 convictions, briefed and argued multiple appeals and all the things. Yeah. And by the way, like we have a lot of criticisms with the FBI and the DOJ. Look at this. These are all of her stickers. Look at this. They put them in a bullet point list. I'm sure she read this. They're like, okay, Miss Comey, this is your lawyer speaking. We're going to file this lawsuit on your behalf. Let me just send this over as a draft, make sure if we're missing anything. So she's like, well, actually, you're missing my bullet point where they said that Miss Comey is highly accomplished in every respect and I'm outstanding. So add that bullet point in here. You can kind of picture Maureen Comey like going in, track changes, markup, go to the comments, add in here, more comment from Maureen Comey. I also am highly accomplished. Okay, let's edit that in there. Perfect. Highly accomplished. And she works tirelessly. That's great. Put that quote in there for my peer review, my performance review. And she demonstrates excellent courtroom presence. I don't think so. Nobody's really speaking too highly of her, saying like, wow, she delivered a burner opening or closing argument. They brought on like 4 or 5 white chicks to prosecute Diddy. Remember that? Like all her white girlfriends to come in there and prosecute a racially charged case. All right. So as further testament to her dedication, she won some cases. And almost 10 years, she served with distinction. All the things. All right. If you're a fired government worker, you can go file in the Merit Service Systems Protection Board. There's a whole separate jurisdiction set up. Go complain over there. You don't get to come file Article 3 complaints because you're mad you got fired. There's a whole system set up for it. Congress created it. Now, she is saying, I can't use it. It was designed to resolve these disputes, but Trump is basically nuking that board and saying Trump put a bunch of people on that board. And so now it's not going to give us a good outcome. So accordingly, as of this filing, there's only one remaining member on the board. And so there is no quorum. And so I can't even bring my claim there. So I have to sue here. And to be clear, they say that Trump is ignoring the rules. And so they say Trump is violating the separation of powers, which is a joke because this is all happening in the executive branch. Trump is the president. The DOJ exists under the executive branch. So he's literally firing somebody in his own branch. But they're saying, well, he's not following how Congress told him to fire somebody. So it's a separation of powers problem. It's just idiotic. Violation of the APA, which all of these claims have failed on. Everybody has failed on this who's tried it so far. So she's trying that again. Another APA claim, freedom of speech claim, and a due process claim. Okay, so property interest. She thinks she's got a property interest in this job. What a joke. Okay, I've got protected property interest in my continued employment. No, you don't. We've seen this like 15 times here over the last several years. Every fired government bureaucratic hack says you can't fire me, and they all lose. They've all been fired that we've covered here. So it's a ridiculous lawsuit. Honestly, I don't know how much he paid for this or if they're doing it pro bono. Who's getting paid for this right now? Koskoff, and Beater. Oh, Margaret is her name. Margaret and Ellen. That's going to be great. So Margaret and Maureen going in and trying to sue Trump for something that is totally lawful. It's a really embarrassing lawsuit. I think they're going to lose pretty quickly. And Maureen is going to have to go get a new job. Just go work with Mark Elias or one of them. We know where you're going to end up. So this lawsuit just got filed today and attorneys are coming in. So we'll see what happens. This is happening in the Southern District of New York. It has not been assigned to a judge yet. So we'll see who gets it. We know that Judge Gia Cobb is shoving Lisa Cook back into the federal position. We haven't talked about that yet because of the recent events. But Maureen Comey scrambling to keep her job. She got fired and she's blaming her dad, which is very rude too. We know that just like father, like daughter, and she's a terrible prosecutor to boot. So you're fired, go find a new job and get out.